Hello. Can you hear me? Switch over to the main screen. Hi, hello everyone. I'm going to push this back so the top of my head isn't getting cut off. There we go. Hi, good morning. How is everyone doing? We are just going to chat for a bit while we wait for some more folks to show up. And yeah, I'm just going to drink my fine coffee. You know, I can honestly say that as Twitch's newest affiliate, this coffee tastes pretty much exactly the same. But it was really awesome to wake up to that email this morning. And find out how to reach. That's part of the reason why I'm a little behind this morning, is that I was filling out all the affiliate paperwork, because of course there's paperwork. Now that you know, as soon as money is involved, there needs to be paperwork, and rightly so. But yeah, it's exciting. Now I have the opportunity to monetize the site, collect money from folks. Folks can buy subs and gift bits and things like that. I haven't even looked into all of that to see sort of at what level I can customize any of that. So that'll be my sort of next step, to see what I can actually do with stuff. Apparently there are channel points now. Like, there's stuff on my stream chat that I have never seen before. We never had like a gift a sub now to be #1 thing at the top of the screen, and I see that now. Channel points, we never had channel points before, so this is all very new and exciting. I don't even know what our channel points do. Unlock rewards. And it says get started, so I think I'm going to leave that alone. Sorry that I don't have any of those in place. I like literally got the email this morning, and just sort of did all the necessary stuff so that I would have affiliate status going into the stream, but I haven't had a chance to actually go through my site and set anything up yet. So if you click on something and it's broken, I apologize. But I do want to say, like, thank you, a huge thank you to everyone who followed the channel. That was a big part of getting me to affiliate status. Yes, there was some, like, you know, requirements on my end. I had to stream for a certain number of hours at a certain number of times. But a lot of the requirements were around, like, sort of building up a community around this stream. I needed to have a minimum of 50 followers, which I do, and there had to be an average of 3 people concurrently in chat. And in order for it to average out that way, like to average out to 3 over a 30-day period, of course you needed to have, like, you know, more people in chat at various times, and then the average times would average out. Yes, that is how math works, Brent. The average times would average out. But yeah, so super excited to get that email this morning. I shared that out on Twitter. I figured since Twitter is still there, we might as well do that. And had some fun with that. I took a quick glance at, like, I mean, I think everyone does probably when they hit affiliate, if they haven't already. looked at those requirements. They look at the requirements for partner, and I'm like, all of the stuff that is solely in my responsibility, like solely in my camp, no problem. I think I can absolutely manage to pull off, like, you know, if I put my mind to it, I could definitely do like the number of hours streamed and the number of. But like one of the requirements is now you have to have an average of over a 30-day period. You have to have an average of 75 people concurrently in chat. And that number seems so, like right now, that number seems so mind-boggling to me, as something that I could ever potentially lay my hands on. So I'm really not worried about that for right now. I'm gonna enjoy affiliate status. I'm gonna do the things I need to do to get set up for like charity streaming and stuff like that. So absolutely, you do not have to. If you're here and you're watching, that is absolutely enough, and that is fantastic. If you do happen to want to like use, I don't know, if you're an Amazon Prime member and you've got that Amazon Prime sub ticking around and you want to use it here, that is fantastic and much appreciated. I can say that for at least the rest of the year, and then I'll look at sort of how that will all work out. But for at least the rest of the year, any of the money that I get through subs and bits and tips and whatever else is going to Extra Life. That's, you know, the primary reason I wanted to hit affiliate status is so that I could do charity streaming, and yeah, so I want that money to go to that. If it ever reaches the point where I'm making enough that I can then, what was that? Oh, new follower. Hey, Kurt. Yeah, we're gonna get to Sigils in the Dark in like just a little bit here. I'm just chatting about hitting affiliate this morning, and then gonna talk a little bit about Extra Life, which is what we're here raising funds for. But thanks so much for the follow. That's really appreciated. Yeah, that's the whole reason I wanted to get to affiliate on here, is that it unlocks a bunch of stuff that I can then use to do charity streaming and stuff like that. And also, you know, unlocks, like, because I can now take subs and because I can now take like bits and tips and things like that, that becomes a way that I can collect money, not just for charities, but, you know, it is absolutely wonderful, and I know that I have friends that would come and stream with me for free for charities if I asked them to. But I do like the possibility of, like, you know, giving them something for their time, even if it's not a lot, you know. But if I can give them like the equivalent of like dinner and you know, I feel better about that than just giving them nothing. So gonna look at, yeah, in the after today's stream, because I'm busy streaming for the rest of the day pretty much. I'm gonna look at into that into more detail. But I can say, like, besides the solo TTRPGs that I'm streaming today, next Saturday, and on Thursday nights through the rest of the year, we do have a game that we're gonna run for my friend Cat McDonald over at Peach Garden Games. That's gonna stream here on the channel, so I'm really excited about that, and I'll have more details about that when when I have them. Basically, we haven't actually set a date yet, but it's going to happen sometime before the end of the year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Yeah, but this morning we're going to play Sigils in the Dark, and it is probably my favorite type of solo TTRPG. So when I was a kid, you know, obviously games are a very social activity, but because of where I was growing up, I grew up in like northern Alberta, and there were just chunks of like the wintertime where, you know, it didn't matter that you wanted to go outside and visit other people. It just wasn't a good idea. When the temperature outside is like -40, you don't leave your home unless you absolutely have to. Because, like, no word of a lie, regardless of how well insulated and heated your home is, as soon as you crack that door and let -40 air into your house, yeah, it's not great. And sometimes it was colder than that. Go ahead and Google for your own amusement. People sometimes don't believe me when I tell them this, but there was a period. So I don't know if you all remember when there were like propane powered vehicles. That was one of the newest sort of like one of the earliest sort of green vehicles. We can probably put green in quotation marks, because I mean, like, propane or gasoline, you're still using like a non-renewable resource in order to power your vehicle, but it was thought to be more green at the time. So anyway, you were able to, in Fort Mac, we had you know, a couple of gas stations that had really like the big propane tanks that, you know, propane powered vehicles could then roll up to, and you had to do like a special like pressure coupling, and it was a whole thing. Anyway, for your own edification, go ahead sometime and Google the point at which propane, the temperature at which propane moves from gas to a liquid. It is a pretty cold temperature, and there were several weeks over the course of like several years when I was living in Fort McMurray where the temperature dropped low enough that they could not safely refuel propane powered vehicles, because the propane was doing that state shift from gas into liquid inside the tanks. And the issue with that is gas is contained at a higher pressure. When it turns into a liquid, the pressure drops, right? But then if you then pump that liquid into a space in which it can turn back into a gas, you can accidentally overfill whatever tank you're putting it into, and then that tank will explode because you've overpressured it. So yeah, that's sort of the environment that I grew up in. Anyway, all of that is to say that I spent a lot of time as a young TTRPG hobbyist on my own, and I spent a lot of that time like creating things for my games, magical items, sites, you know, monsters, characters. Like, I rolled up characters, just, you know, making characters for games became a hobby in and of itself. So I love that sort of just sitting down and coming up with something. And I love that there is this whole branch of solo TTRPGs that is solely focused on you sitting down and playing the game and creating something, and at the end of it you have this artifact that you can then take and show to your players, show to your game master, whatever. And those vary. Like, so there are I played one of the very first streams I did for solo TTRPGs for Extra Life was Delve, which is a wonderful game by Anna Blackwell, and it is, you are basically mapping out your exploration, your creation of a dwarven enclave. You are in search of a magical artifact, and as you were searching, you were digging out and excavating rooms and mines and things like that. And so through the process of the game, you're drawing this map of, you know, of this dwarven enclave as you dig it out, but you're also role-playing sort of the management of that. And things can go horribly wrong. You know, you can be digging just like the dwarves in Tolkien. You can dig too deep, and then bad things come up and find you. And so, win or lose, the cool thing about that game is that at the end of the game, you have this map of this environment that you could now build. Right, so you've just played the game that's created this map and this location. Now, look at all of the different rooms you have and the different areas you have, and imagine that location like hundreds of years in the future, where it's maybe fallen into disrepair, monsters have moved into various areas, that sort of thing. And now you have an adventure location, right? Like something for your party to explore. Excuse me. So that brings us to the game that we are playing today, which is Sigils in the Dark, in which we are going to create an evil mage's spellbook, which at the end of it we will actually have like a physical artifact that we can. So the next time I'm running a game, or if you pick up the game yourself, which you can do by going to, nope, that's not right, which you can do by going to that address. Knew I had it. On itch, and picking up a copy for yourself. It is super simple. The game itself is not very long. It is not complicated at all, as you will see. And at the end of it, it even comes with like some blank pages that have like the starting information all laid out on it for you, and they look like sort of they look like journal pages. So if you don't have a journal handy, you can just print out a number of those pages, or really you can do them on anything. Like, I'm going to write the stuff that I have in just this journal that I keep next to my desk for doing these journaling games. But I may transfer that information into another actual, either small journal, or like I have it in my head. There's a campaign that I'm thinking of running in the next little while that is more of a modern campaign. And so I want to get the sort of the obsessive nature of this mage across by doing things like, yes, some of the sigils and spells are on pages in this notebook that he's been using, but also they're written on like whatever he has handy at the time. So like maybe there's just a magazine page that he scrawled this stuff over, or like literally drew it on a napkin or whatever, and all of this is just crammed into this book. this like beat up notebook that's held together with like tape and rubber bands. But like just anticipating the reaction of my players. This is something that I'm saving for like an in-person game, probably later on in 2023. And I'm just anticipating the reaction of my players when I like drop this physical artifact on the table and say like, yeah, this is the book you found. Not, you know, however well you describe it to them, there is nothing that takes the place of being able to hand your players, like, you know, I could describe, like I just described it to you, how I want it to look and feel and stuff like that. And that's cool. But that's not gonna, you know, even as interesting as you may have found that, that's not going to compare to like a physical artifact that they can hold in their hand. They can pull the rubber bands off. They can, like, you know, hear the tape crinkle and maybe some pages tear a little bit as it opens up, and they have to unfold pages. There's the whole like physical manipulation aspect to having like an artifact like that, that is just so cool. And I think it's a huge thing that's been missing from gaming, you know, over the last several years, as we've all been sort of isolating for this pandemic, and honestly still need to be, to an extent, but yeah, I'm excited at the possibility of getting back to that a little bit. So yeah, so that's what we're going to play this morning. But why we are playing it, besides the fact that it is an excellent fun game, we are playing all of this stuff in support of Extra Life. And if you put extra exclamation point Extra Life in chat, that is a link to my donation page. That has a whole bunch of information about how you can support my Extra Life fundraising, how different ways and different incentives that I have in place for folks who donate. I really do appreciate it. You can see the meter at the top of the screen. I have a $1,000 goal. I'm currently at $828 of that, which is just a huge thank you to everyone who has donated so far. You are all absolutely amazing. There is some money that is coming in from both some stuff I've been selling on Itch, and of course there's anything that I generate from the channel now that's going to get added to that. But all of that money so far has come from donations from very generous viewers and followers, and it's hugely appreciated. Is the music too loud? I'm feeling like it's a little loud. It's loud in my ear. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, so a couple of things that I want to pick out on my donation page, besides the incentives at various levels. So starting at $10, you know, if you donate at the $10 level, I will create a magic item or a special item for whatever game it is you're playing. I anticipate that most of that will be creating magic items for Dungeons and Dragons, but honestly, I will create an item for like whatever game I'm familiar with. I'm a freelance editor in my spare time, and I am familiar with the rule systems for like it might actually be a shorter list if I were to like list out the games I'm not familiar with. It's not a brag. It's just, you know, if you spend enough time doing something, you get familiar with a lot of stuff. So I will create an item for like whatever game you're doing at the $10 level, and then it ramps up from there. I will create. I think it's is it 15 or 20? I can't remember. But you can see there at a higher level, I will create like a NPC or a monster for your game. At a higher level still, I'll do an adventure location, like a little, you know, something like a hut or a section of caves or something like that. And then at a higher level still, I will combine all three of those things. So they can still be three separate things, but if you want them connected theme-wise, I'll do that as well. There's like, I know the $50 level, I will edit up to 25 pages of something for you. So if you're a tabletop RPG writer, and you need something edited, that is like honestly $50 for up to $20 25 pages of stuff is really good. So you get to help sick kids, you get some very quality editing for an extremely good price, and we all win. But I did want to point out like two things from the site. One is I have what I have termed the $10 to infinity plan, which is if you do donate $10 and get a magic item created by me, you get to have the magic item. It's yours to do with your wish. But I am also going to take all of the items that I create for this and put them together into a document and clean it up a little bit and do a nice layout, and then put that out for sale through my itch page, and then all of the money generated from the sale of that will get donated back to Extra Life in perpetuity. So for $10 you can continue giving to Extra Life for, well, potentially for infinity. Who knows? At least as long as I'm around. What else? Oh, yes. One of the things I linked on my donation page as well. So a month or so ago, I came up with essentially I was like, you know, answering the burning question on everyone's mind. But what if I wanted to play a sentient swarm of bees who is also a paladin? So I came up with the Oath of the Hive, which if you you can play as a sentient swarm of bees who is also a paladin. There's some wonderful little special abilities and stuff in there. That is currently on my itch page for $2. All proceeds from that go to support Extra Life. And there is a TTRPG Solstice bundle that is coming out in the next little while. I don't have any more details than that, but Oath of the Hive is in there. So if you would rather wait and get the bundle, you can absolutely do that. And then you'll get, besides Oath of the Hive, you'll get like a ton of other, I think there's like 50 other creators, or 49 other creators involved. So I'll release details about that when I have them. But yeah, let's get on with the gaming. So this is Sigils in the Dark, and this is something I'm like really excited to play. So let me just go to okay. Let me read the flavor text at the beginning. You have a need, a deep burning need that drives you. Is it love, regret, desire? The darkness whispers, I can help you. Minutes turn to hours as you try to focus on the voice. Symbols, shapes swirl in the darkness at the edge of your perception. If only you could grasp them, your needs would be met, and more. Yeah, that is the start to Sigils in the Dark. So we have to start with our need. So how to play. So I'm actually going to, for ease of showing you what this looks like, I could write with my nice purple pen, but it is very fine. So for the purposes of today, I'm going to write with Sharpie, because that will be the best way to show you what I need to show you. And yeah, so on the first page of your grimoire, write what you think a future owner of the tome will need to know about you. So as I do with this one, I will be like writing out some of the spells and then showing you. I do have it on my list to get myself a second camera going forward, because I do want to be able to sort of like have a camera facing down on the table, so that I can write into the journal, or I can do the mapping and stuff like that, and you can watch that happen. Apologize for not having that set up. I'm a brand new streamer, and so I'm just sort of doing the best I can with what I got. So yeah, it may be a little clumsy, but I will write out the spell, and then sort of show you as I'm going along what that all looks like. As for the journaling aspects of, like, you know, I'm not going to sit here and make you watch me write like long journal entries. I will tend to talk through those. Obviously, if I were playing this game solely on my own, there it is, English. I would just you know, write it all out in a journal, and that would be fantastic. But you're here, and so I'm basically just going to talk through stuff, and share that with you, as opposed to necessarily writing it down in a book. But the spells I am absolutely going to create, because that is like the integral part of this game, and it is a lot of fun and very interesting. So I think Kurt has done like an amazing job of like creating a system of how to do that, where you end up at the end with something that looks very arcane, and a little disturbing, so what is my, so I think I'm just going to go, for the purposes of today, I'm just gonna name this person William. Location right here in Edmonton, where I'm living. And then why am I searching for arcane power? So initially, let's see, what is... Now I could just pick one. So there is a need. You have a need. The game suggests that you are an evil mage, but also, like, in practice, it also plays around with the idea that, like, you're not necessarily evil because of what you know. Are you evil because of the things you think, or are you evil because of the things you're doing to get what you want? And, you know, the game doesn't really make a judgment on that, but it presents a lot of, it sort of just presents that to you. And so as you're journaling along, you have to sort of make those determinations for the character that is making this evil, this spell book. So let's figure out what my need is. I could just pick one off the list. There is a list of 12 different needs here, but yeah, like, as it sees. And when I say need, this isn't just like, you know, this would be nice to have. As it says in the game, as you fill the pages of your grimoire with liner notes and struggle to pay the costs of each new spell, remember that your need will make it all worth it. With each setback, you'll double down because everything will be perfect once you achieve your goal. So this isn't like, it'd be nice to have. This is like the deep, burning, I must achieve this. Nothing else in my world matters. Yeah, absolutely. And good morning, Oscar. How are you? This is what we're playing right now, Sigils in the Dark by Kurt Potts. We're going to make a mage's spellbook. So if you pick up a copy of the game and want to play along, this is what we're doing. I could just pick one, but I think for the purposes of this morning, I'm going to roll for it. There are 12 of them. So let's just see what we get, and we'll go from there. I don't know if you can see this. This is like one of my oldest 12-sided die. Let me just, there we go. Let's see. There we go. You can see there. This is like from the red box basic set that I got, which wasn't the first box set that I got, but it was the first one that had dice in it. The earlier set that I had was the sepia toned. It was just Dungeons and Dragons. This was before they did the split between basic and otherwise. And so, oh, and sorry, this wasn't from the red box. This was from the pink box that had the funky art with the green dragon on it. Red box was much later, but anyway, yeah, my first one was like the blue monochrome cover box that was sort of after they had left off with the white boxes and made the book sort of more like 8.5 by 11 sized. that was the first version that I had, and that didn't come with dice. That came with mostly because like polyhedral dice were not a huge thing at the time. Like the tabletop industry was new, and so what they were forced to do while they waited for like dice to come in, because they fully intended to sell dice with the box set. It was just a situation where they didn't get them in time. So they had these like cardstock chits that were numbered like the way your dice were. So they had like a little cardstock thing. You would cut out these chits numbered like 1 through 20, and you would put them in like a little bowl, or in my case, my parents had like empty film canisters around because they took a lot of pictures for holidays and things like that. And so I would just borrow these these empty film canisters and put the chits in there, and then when it came time for you to roll, instead of rolling dice, you would shake up the film canister, and then sort of reach inside and pick out, without looking, you would pick a chit out, and whatever number was on there was what you had rolled, and you would go from there. Anyway, so this is one, and you can't really see, if you could see it up close, you would see that I have, this was, so they used to send the dice without any numbers colored in, and then they would send a crayon, and it was a white crayon or a black crayon depending on what color the dice in the box were. So if the dice were a lighter color, they would send a black crayon. If the dice were a darker color, they would send a white crayon. And the idea is that you would take the crayon and you would like rub it over top of the number, and so the wax from the crayon would get stuck in the grooves of the number, and then you would just take a tissue and like wipe any excess wax off the surface of the face, and the wax would stay behind in the number, and that's how you would color in your dice. There was like a whole, obviously no dice company wants to make you do that these days. They want to sell you very beautiful looking dice, and rightly too. It's really great, but there was a whole like physical, like tactile crafting form factor of gaming in the very early days of gaming that isn't around anymore. I don't know that I would really call it a loss, but yeah, just a nice little artifact. In any case, I got my 12-sided die. I'm going to figure out what is William's need. William's need is 10. Oh, nah, I'm not really comfortable talking about that one. 10 is my crush is mine. Not 100% comfortable doing stalkery behavior on stream. So I think that could be fine depending on the type of game. Obviously, if you're going to introduce something like that into your game, you need to have a conversation with your players and do all the safety tools and stuff like that. But I think 8. My co-workers grovel at my feet. Ooh, yeah, disgruntled employee. Ooh. We're seeing, even without a spell book, we're like on Twitter, we're sort of seeing in real time what happens when you have a bunch of disgruntled employees. But yes, my co-workers will grovel at my feet. Ooh, I'm already thinking ahead to like actually creating this as a physical artifact for a game. I think it would be really cool to have like what if like the pages, like I said before, I want like like just pages crammed into a notebook. So like, yeah, some of the notebook pages have been used, but some of the other pages in there are just like loose pages that like whatever is at hand. And if it's coworkers, I think it would be really cool if there was like company stationery, like memos had been sent out. And so there's just this series of memos that have sort of pushed William closer and closer to the edge until finally he snaps. And because he's like kept and obsessed over all of these memos, that it's like the back of the memo or maybe the front of the memo even is where he's written out these spells. That would be really cool. Okay. I'm actually going to just make a little note of that so I don't forget about it. Ooh, because then at that point it's like a double. You're giving like extra bits of like campaign information to the players, because you've got the spell book that they can read through and find that information, but also you're getting like you've got a company that exists in world. You have at least one disgruntled employee. Like, just because you found the spell book doesn't necessarily mean that anything, like William may still be out there somewhere. So you could still encounter William and find out how upset he is about the fact that you have his spell book. But also you get like little details about the inner workings of this company. Obviously the memos are from somebody to William or from somebody to the employees at large, so now you've got NPCs involved. So, I love creating things like this where you're giving the players multiple levels of information that they then have to do like a little bit of like, brain work to sort of like pull together, and they can do like the the cork board and the yarn, to sort of like pull details together and figure out what they're going to do next. And here's a little jamming tip. It's fine if you want to come up with sort of how that stuff is working, but don't be too quick to like nail that down and have that be like set in stone. I find it much more exciting and to have like a rough idea of the plot and the people involved and how it all fits together, and then present those clues to the players and have the players say to me how they think it all fits together. Because and then, right, I mean, I was going to say if it doesn't completely derail what you were thinking of, but even if it does, why not run with it? Why not let the players, like, you're there to play a game together and to be, to tell a story and stuff like that. So, like, why not let the players give you, because that doesn't mean that you, like, if the players, like, come up with an idea for how things are fitting together and stuff like this, it doesn't mean that they're 100% right. They could be right in a very general sense and still have particular pieces of information wrong. So you still have an opportunity to, like, surprise them with things and stuff like that. But it is always going to feel better for your players to be the smartest people in the room. I don't really believe as a GM in making my players feel like they're not doing, like, if it's an ability they have or it's something special that they can do, it needs to be special when they use it. Like, it needs to be something like, so I'm always I'm always against having like things be like the possibility for there to be an absolute failure. Anyway, that's something we can talk about at a future date. Let's get back to the game. Memos. And let's get into writing our first spell. So, you're basically getting like the basis of this game is that you are just so driven towards this need, and like you cry out in the dark for something to help you, and this time something is answered back, and you start getting these arcane symbols and words and things like that in your head. So we're going to do our first spell, and I like to think of this as like this is you know, as much as the dark might want to use you as a tool for its own ends, it needs to know that you're going to, you know, you're going to be a useful tool, that you're going to stand up to things. So it starts you off with something simple. It starts you off with, hold on a sec. Just going to grab something I can use to draw a circle. Like the lid to my zombie dice game. Million and one uses, the zombie dice game. So, boop. And then put 3 points roughly on there. As I said, the game actually comes with some pre-laid out pages for you to use at the end that you can print out, and they have pages for each the 3-point spell circle, the 5-point, and the 7-point, which are the varying difficulties. But so for your 3-point thing, the spell circle starts looking something like this. You've got your circle, and then you've got 3 points here. And those points are important because you are going to roll on the segment table to generate what that segment of the circle, and that segment connects 2 of those points. So your beginning spell circle is going to be comprised of the circle. Sorry, let me pop back to make sure I'm actually showing you. There we go. Hold that up. Is going to be the circle, and then it's going to be 3 sections connecting those 3 points with a symbol in the center. That is going to be your beginning spell circle. And then you can opt to learn more complicated spells. So you would then have a 5-point, which you would then have to join all of those. So first you roll on the segment table to generate the segment that you see. So this is like the image that whatever power in the darkness is out there is throwing into your mind. So let's quickly go down to the segment table. And we're going to need a D20, which I happen to have a ton of them around, so that's not going to be a problem. 18, okay. Okay, so my first is gonna be like thick line. And then thin wavy line. And obviously you don't have to be like any amazing type of artist to do this, which is great because I'm certainly not. That is what my first segment looks like. I had this sort of a thicker line at the top. It's like an eyeball with like a little eyebrow and then a squiggly line that connects. And all it matters is that you get like sort of the basic symbol shapes in there, and that they connect two of the 3 points on your thing. After you have done that, however, you need to figure out what does that mean? So then you roll on the effect table. So what does that do? What is that? And it turns out that that is like, what do we got here? Ooh, do harm. So already this spell is off to a rockin' start because this is a spell that is meant to harm somebody. So sorry, I'm just taking a second to write out the rest of the spell sheet. Okay. So that's roughly how you're going to structure your spell. It's going to have the circle on it with however many points there are on it based on how complicated it is, and your spell is going to have, you're going to have an area up here to list out your connectors, the symbols that you're going to put in there, which you're then going to obviously draw onto the circle itself, the cost, which we'll get to in a minute, and then you want a spell name and the spell effect. And I would say, so here's what I would recommend if you were going to do this, to play this game, to create the artifact, is that I would use the stuff that you did while you were playing the game as sort of your first draft of that. I mean, it could be the final thing. Maybe you have, you know, someone who will write it out exactly this way. I actually sort of get the feeling that William would sort of be that sort of, because he works for like a company, maybe he's a administrator or something like that. So he has that sort of personality of, like, you know, titling everything and writing reports and stuff like that. And so that sort of like is, whether he really wants it to or not, is sort of funneling into the creation of the spell book. But I would suggest that also it would be absolutely fine for you to create a spell book where you didn't actually have these headings on the page, where the page just had all of this information, and maybe your players have to have to puzzle that out a little bit in order to. But in any case, you know, my first connector is that. Haven't got any symbols yet. And yeah, that first connector is all about doing harm. So you basically just keep going with that. So we're gonna do the next one. What does my next connector look like? Sure, now I roll high. All right. So I think we're going to do that. So if I draw, and there we go. So that's what my next connector looks like, and let's see what that effect and object tables. Where do we go? Where do we roll? 17. Ooh, strengthen. So we're not just doing harm, but this is a fairly strong harm spell. I'm gonna just off the top of my head, we'll talk about, because there's a section here to figure out what the spell's effect is going to be. But I have a direction in which I think I'm leaning. All right, and last one. 3. Oh, okay, that's pretty simple. And there we go. That's the last segment. And that segment means oh, back up, back, shrink. Okay. And then the last thing we have to do is we have to put a symbol in the center of that. So we've done yeah, and the symbol is the object that the spell can interact with. So, oh, hey Sphinx, how you doing? Thanks for coming by. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's just gonna unlock so much stuff for me to do around fundraising and stuff. I'm really super excited about it. But yeah, thanks for coming by, man. I'm making an Evil Mage's spellbook. This is Sigils in the Dark. I will put I think I still have it there. That's a link to the game. But it's basically, it's a game in which you are something in the dark is answering your deepest, darkest prayers and giving you spells in order to reach your in order to acquire your need. In this case, this character's need is to make his co-workers grovel at his feet. And so And then at the end of it, depending on how long you keep going, you're going to have like a spell book that has like a whole bunch of different spells in it, which is like an actual physical thing you can hand out at the table to your players, which is really freaking cool. All right, so the last thing we need to do here is, so everything that I've done so far, like all of the connector lines are basically about what the spell does. So the components of what the spell can do. And then the symbols that you put in determine like what it affects. So the lines, the segments determine what the spell can do, and the symbols tell you who the spell does it to, basically. So first we're gonna roll and get the symbol. Where did that go? Here it is. Getting to that page now. The symbols. All right. D20 for the symbol. 6. Okay. Yeah, I think that's right. Alright, that's the symbol as best as I can draw it off of the sheet. And that symbol affects element. So it affects one of the elements. So my connectors are do harm, shrink, and strengthen. So that is the effect of my spell. That is what my spell does. It harms, strengthens, and shrinks. But it does this to an element. So now you sort of have to figure out, there's two things. So you figure out the spell's effect, but then we also have to figure out the spell's cost. You ain't getting this power for free. You have to give something in order to get this spell to work. So I think harm, strengthen, shrink, and elements. Now elements could mean, elements is vague enough that it could mean, you know, obviously like one of the periodic table elements. So, you know, my my spell could affect boron. I don't know how specifically useful that would be, but that is the thing that I could do with it. But it could also mean like the elements, the weather, right? Like, and I'm just trying to see on here. So I want to make sure if there's another entry that is just weather that I don't want to. Nope. So, yeah. So there isn't another entry, so this could be a weather effect. What could harm, strengthen, and shrink due to the weather that would be like a really cool so what if it let me take a sip of my coffee as I think. Anyone in chat have a clever idea? Also, I notice I'm getting, or have been getting, some dropped frames. I apologize. Not sure what is causing that. I'm not really doing anything different today than I've done in the past. But if it's been a little laggy or choppy, please do let me know. I will do something to figure it out. Probably the first thing is I will get rid of the music that's playing. Usually that fixes it right up. So while I'm thinking of something, I will also say, remind everyone, we are doing this in support of Extra Life. Boop. So if you feel so inclined and have a few dollars to spare, please consider going to my Extra Life page and making a donation. Helps out sick kids. You can see I'm at 82.8% of my overall goal, which is awesome, and is thanks entirely to everyone who has helped through donations or through sharing, like my tweets and stuff like that. You've all had a hand in like helping me get that far, and it's really appreciated. You can also, if you literally only have a few bucks that you can spare, you can pick up a copy of my Oath of the Hive off of Itch. That is linked on my donation page, so if you go there, you'll find the link to that, and then that is $2, and all proceeds from that go to Extra Life as well. As do, if you subscribe here, or I don't even know what a lot of the buttons you're seeing do. I haven't had a chance to do that, to check into any of that before I started streaming today. I basically rushed through the paperwork for affiliate, and then came here to stream. So you may click a button and nothing will happen, and I apologize. But anything you do as far as subbing or buying bits or tips or anything like that, all of that for the rest of the year is also going to go to Extra Life, because that is the primary reason I wanted to hit affiliate status, is because it unlocked a lot of stuff for me as far as helping me do charity streaming, and supporting the charities that I love. So all right, what is this spell effect? Harm, shrink, strengthen, and it has to do with the element. It affects the elements. What if just because of everything that's going on in like the tech industry right now, I'm tempted to think that William is like a tech bro and works for like some Silicon Valley, not even a startup, but like one of those. They've been around long enough that they're starting to marinate in their own toxic work environment. It was all fun and games at the start, but now they're just starting to stagnate, and so they're marinating in that awful tech bro environment that they've created for themselves. And I'm not making William out to be a hero here. William is, I think, very definitely just one of those disgruntled tech bros who feels that his genius is not being appreciated, and needs to, and is lashing out. And something in the dark is willing to help him do that. But if they're in Silicon Valley, they're in California, and if they're in California, like, what if... I don't know how shrink fits into this. I'm sure there's some scientific-y weather thing that, like, you know, the spell could, I don't know, shrink air pressure. Actually, let me quickly Google. Do you need high or low air pressure for rain? Low pressure is what causes active weather. Yeah, the air is lighter than the surrounding air masses, so it rises, causing an unstable environment. Rising air makes the water vapor in the air condense and form clouds and rains, for example. Low pressure systems lead to active weather like wind and rain, and also severe weather. Perfect. Okay, so I think we've got it. This is the shrinking. This is going to I think this is going to be like a... I think this is going to be like a hailstorm spell. So it just causes like hours and hours, and like usually a hailstorm is like a very short-lived part of a weather event. And it's they can be horribly destructive. If you go online, you can find any number of like videos and stuff like that about showing like the effects of pretty large hailstones. But even like masses of smaller ones causing huge amounts of property damage and injuring people and things like that. They are awful, awful things. So imagine if you're in some place like Silicon Valley in California, where it's, I mean, let's face it, probably not a lot of rain, you know, the weather is like pretty sunny, and then just all of a sudden the skies darken, dark clouds come rolling in, and it hails for hours. But only, well, I was going to say only over this one company. But I'm imagining like the fallout from that is like it's not that specific. Sorry, I heard a noise. Somebody did something. Aris, welcome in and thank you for the follow. That was very kind of you. We are currently playing, I think I still have it in there, Sigils in the Dark by Kurt Potts, in which I am making a Evil Mage's spellbook. And it is really cool because at the end of it, after I've done a bunch of pages, so that's what it looks like. You roll on tables and there are symbols and stuff that you then draw into your magic circles and stuff like that and generate, and then you generate what the spell does, and that's what we're sort of like talking through right now. So the various effects that the spell is doing is harm, strengthen, and shrink, and so we sort of, and it affects the elements. That's what the spell latches onto. So what we sort of determined is this is a the creator of this spellbook is a disgruntled tech bro who wants his co-workers to grovel at his feet. And so he's got this spell that allows him to create a hailstorm in Silicon Valley, which, yeah, if so here in Canada we have this thing, like most of the country, like 90% of the country gets hit with, like, you know, actual winter, but there are still parts of, like, on the West Coast, you know, cities like Vancouver and stuff like that. It's not that it doesn't get like colder, but generally for them it gets like cold and rainy because they're still on the West Coast. They've still got that sort of warm jet stream air that keeps them a little warmer than the rest of Canada. but they do occasionally get snow, and it is this thing of the Vancouver and the Vancouver Delta are not really equipped to handle snow. They don't have, like, they have to bring in snowplows from other communities. The city of Vancouver itself does not really have a snow removal plan, because why would you make a snow removal plan for something that might happen every couple of years? Except, of course, with global warming and the heat effects, they are starting to get like snow every winter, and so they're starting to have to think about this stuff. But anyway, whenever they do get snow, like, the city of Vancouver essentially shuts down. Transit doesn't run. Like, nobody has snow tires there, for instance. Like, why would you put snow tires on a car in a city where you might get a couple of inches of snow for a couple of days out of the year? You wouldn't. Like, why would you spend the money to do that? But as a result of that, that means that, like, nobody is able to safely drive on the roads for a couple of days, so that affects, like, how the city runs and stuff like that. So I'm imagining a similar thing would happen in Silicon Valley if it just hailed for hours, right? Like, imagine just golf ball sized hailstones, or bigger even, but let's put them in, like, you know, golf ball size to start. This is like sort of William's beginning spell, so maybe it's not as powerful as all that. Right, but just hours of hail falling on Silicon Valley, centered very specifically on the company that William works at, obviously. But also, because it's a beginning spell, I don't think it's that focused. Like, I don't think there's like a cone of hailstorm right over the building and everything else is fine. I think it is, the center of the storm is on this building and it is taking the worst of the damage, but that doesn't mean that the rest of Silicon Valley, the rest of the community, isn't also getting hit with hail and rain. So yeah, I think that now you don't get this kind of power for free. I know, it's surprising. When a voice whispers to you in the dark, and and offers you offers you this kind of power, it does not come for free. So you have to come up with a cost. I'm just quickly looking to see if there's like the play segments, the objects. Right. Roll the d6 on the cost table. Right, okay. So yes, the cost table is very long. There are 40 entries there for you to choose from. And that's because as you write out more and more powerful spells, you will roll more dice on the table. But initially, because this is a very we need we just roll a d6, but this is very, very funny based on what we determine the spell is. So the cost of casting the spell this makes sense from like a very D&D spell component point of view. The cost of casting this hailstorm spell is a pail of fresh fallen snow. So I'm imagining I'm imagining like William getting like all of this. So you know the voice that's whispering to him in the dark is giving him like this, um, you know, like here's the first line of the sigil. Here's the second. Here's the symbol to put in the center. This is what the spell does. Oh, and by the way, in order to make this happen, California boy, you're going to need a pail of fresh fallen snow. And, and now, luckily, as we all know, you can get anything on the internet. So actually, no, that's boring. Just ordering it on the internet. I think what William does is William is still in touch with somebody he was in. He was at like college with them, and they do like a lot of weather studies, and so they're able to do things like create like essentially an indoor snowstorm that so that they can test out like, you know, the I don't know, maybe they're doing like clothing testing or stuff like that, or they're weather testing like plane parts, or and they're just able to generate this weather effect. So he goes to his friend and is like, you know, slips him like a 20 or a case of beer or whatever, and his friend whips up a snowstorm inside the test chamber to give him his pail of fresh fallen snow. Which could be fun, like, because as I say, this is meant to be, at the end of all this is meant to be like a physical artifact that you give to your players. So then that could be fun as if the players ever decide they need to. Yeah, I think the journal entry for this one is going to include, like, you know, yes, like a couple of lines or a paragraph of William bitching about the fact that, like, seriously, I have to get like snow in order to get like a hailstorm. What kind of, like, this is bullshit. We're in California. How can I? And then he figures out like how to do it, and it's just this. Because of course he's got to go tell his friend, yeah, I need a pail of fresh fallen snow. No, I can't tell you why. And then there's the outside possibility that like maybe his, like, unless William's smart and maybe, well, but it does specify fresh fallen, right? So maybe every time William wants to cast this spell, he has to go back to his friend and be like, yeah, I need another pail. No, I still can't tell you why. And his friend is starting to get suspicious. Maybe it's starting to jack up the price, which is really annoying William. So now his friend is now on his shit list, and may come in for a bad ending at some point in time. But he still needs him if he wants to cast this spell. But yeah, he but it gives like an NPC for the players to track down in the course of, like, they find the spellbook and they find references to, like, yeah, I went and spoke with you know, I went and spoke with Jenny and had her make me another pail of snow. I think she's getting suspicious. Might have to do something about that. Yada yada yada. And then that gives like the party like a clue and a pathway to like sort of like figure out who this person is and what they're up to. But also because this is a spell book and, like, you know, all the instructions are here, right? Draw the symbol, pay the cost. You know, you can create a hailstorm. Maybe the players want to create a hailstorm. Maybe they need to cultivate a relationship with Jenny in order to get their own pails of snow. But you have to imagine at some point Jenny is getting suspicious. Every time William comes to visit and takes away a pail of snow, within like a day, like within the day, there's a hailstorm somewhere in the vicinity. There's only so many freak hailstorms you can have happen before they stop being freak hailstorms and somebody is going to take notice and start investigating. And then, yeah. But the cost is all worth it because William is going to get his co-workers to grovel at his feet. And that is what the point of this is. So is it enough? So, I mean, you can literally play this game. I think that's where we're going to end it today, because that is I've just demonstrated like the bulk of that. That is what you will continue doing, is you will continue like journaling out Williams. Is it enough? Is the hailstorm enough? Did it disrupt a business? Did it, because maybe he didn't center the hailstorm over the company itself. After all, his goal is to get his coworkers to grovel at his feet. So maybe instead of it being centered over the business, instead it's centered like the freak hailstorm doesn't happen at the company headquarters. It happens at like the home of one of his coworkers who is like standing in his way of getting like that manager's position or whatever it is he's looking for. And like, if you've seen videos of what golf ball sized hail can do to a car, imagine what hours of hail could do to a house, right? Like just hours and hours of hail hammering a house, especially a house in California that is in no way built to withstand that type of weather, right? Like maybe the earth, like depending on when the house was built, it has some like earthquake resistant construction going on. It is, but unless you live in a country that has like distinct seasons and you have distinct winter, your house, like the building codes are not going to include like, hey, we need to protect in case the temperature gets down below zero, because like, when is that going to happen in California? No one would think to build a house with that in mind. So there's no way any house in California is like, able to withstand hail even a little bit. Never mind for hours and hours at a time. So yeah. So maybe William just uses it to like eliminate or scare off one of these co-workers, so he's one rung closer to getting that management position and having everyone there sort of grovel at his feet, as William puts it. And the darkness is more than happy to help him. And so at this point you would decide, like, so your next spell, now that you got the sort of beginning, you could do it like another beginner spell if you wanted to. You could step it up a notch. And so you have you have the option of like then doing like a spell with a higher difficulty to it. So this would be like a 5-point circle, and then you would follow the same routine. You would figure out the connectors between each of those 5 points, and what each of those connectors do, so the effect that they have. And then, but instead of just having one symbol in the center, on the 5-point one, now you have the ability to do, so you would actually have a spell that could affect On the 5.1, you're going to have um, um, so so for instance, if you were to do like a spell circle that has like the 5 connector points, essentially you're making like a pentagram. You would roll twice on the cost table, and that would, so basically when you have and the thing is, you don't have to include all of the symbols. You do have to do all of the connector points. I think, but you don't have to have all of the symbols. You can just do like one symbol and have it affect that. You can do multiple symbols if you want. You have to keep in mind that as you do that, however, like there is the possibility that you can roll the same connectors like multiple times, and as you do that, it upgrades the, if you ever do that, if you ever roll the same connector more than once, that upgrades the cost of the spell. And what that means is you will increase the die type that you use for, so right now we're using d6s, but if I had rolled like 2 of those things on there, I would upgrade from a d6 to a d8, and that would and this goes for like extra sides or extra symbols. So if you do put like multiple symbols in and you get doubles, what that means is that spell is like really focused on, like that is a really important part of that spell. So whatever else the spell does, that is, you know, the thing with the multiple symbols or the multiple segments is the most important part of it. But it also means that spell is more powerful and it costs more. And so like the entries on the cost table, there are 40 entries there. So like 1 to 6 is like 1 is an apple coveted, a family heirloom taken, a love letter undelivered. That's 3. The light of a waxing crescent moon. So you have to cast the spell under that. Pale of fresh fallen snow, which is a lie believed. Like that's 1 through 6. All relatively simple. Like the only reason that Pale of fresh fallen snow is difficult is because, you know, I had decided that this is in California. But then as you get further up the list, if you're rolling like more dice and bigger dice, there's things like an apprentice lost. They leave that satisfactorily vague, so you can figure out what that means. Like number 40 on here is our world delivered to the darkness. So yeah, that's for like your most powerful. But there's also things on here like Skull of a Lightborn. So, and in brackets it says good monsters. So some sort of creature that is generally working towards good in the world. You need to, well, you don't necessarily have to kill it yourself, but you got to get a hold of its skull. So somebody killed it at some point. Somebody took goodness out of the world in order for you to have that item. 3 dark spawn chanting. These are bad monsters. So you've got to, you know, attract the attention of some very bad creatures and then get them to come and chant with you as you cast the spell. So there's all sorts of stuff that you can put in here. It is an absolutely wonderful game. As I said, um, I love games that, you know, allow me to have like a physical artifact at the end of it. It is very, very satisfying, and it is a great way to come up with like not just the, you know, not just a bad guy in your next gaming campaign, but also like details around that person, and you know, people that they know or people that they've had to seek out, and so these are NPCs that now the players can seek out as well. And like I said, just that experience of being able to plop, you know, instead of just describing like, yeah, you find this ratty old notebook that seems to have like a lot of eldritch writing in it, you instead get to like drop, I'm just going to adjust, sorry, the shaky camera there, that's better. You get to drop this like physical artifact on the table and say like, yep, you search through the desk and this is what you find. And then the players get that experience of like having to go through the book and like pick out all the details, and you know, instead of doing like a bunch of dice rolls about like, you know, what information do you get out of the book, what information is, you know, is there, that sort of stuff. The book is there, read the book. What do you pick out? And you know, you as the GM now have this thing that is going to excite and inspire your players for like that session and hopefully sessions to come. And then, you know, you can anticipate and look forward to that wonderful day where they've got this Evil Mage's spell book, and yeah, exactly, Sphinx. Like it's or like it could be, right, like they encounter this spell book and it is like the older spell book, right? Like the mage has since gone on to make like a more elaborate one as the dark continues to whisper to them, and they have like even more elaborate spells that they have to pull together. And so they're looking at this thing and thinking like, ooh, wow, this is really powerful. And they don't even know what's coming. But yeah, I like that idea of like, you know, they get a sense of like, now they have to deal with this person. Like, this is the type of person they have to make a deal with. And that's, you know, isn't going to necessarily feel good. But also I like the idea of you as the GM being able to anticipate and look forward to the moment where the players are like, you know, obviously this is an Evil Mage's spell book. No one should be doing any of the spells in here. But then you can present to them like situations where they might not be able to like accomplish what they need to accomplish, but there is this spell in that spell book they found, and if they're just willing to pay the cost, that could solve their problem. And you have that wonderful moment of watching the players and their characters, you know, squirm and twist and like try to figure out like how to mitigate and how to justify using the forbidden knowledge that is in this book. And then if they do use it, is that voice that spoke to the evil mage in the darkness going to come and talk to them as well? And what is that evil voice, and who is speaking? Yeah, it just creates like all of these extra layers and this extra flavor for your campaign that I think is absolutely wonderful. And all from just sitting down for a little while and drawing some stuff in a notebook. And having fun. Like, if you're like me, that activity is fun in and of itself. But then when you're finished, you know, and maybe, here's the thing. Maybe the players don't encounter, like, maybe the characters don't encounter it as a spell book initially. Maybe they encounter, like, they start finding these odd random sheets of paper with this information scribbled on it. Yeah, exactly. Maybe the voice is like, you know, the voice basically rats them out to the evil mage. But maybe they don't find the entire book at first. Maybe they find like a random page that just has this, like, a spell on it. And I'm like, huh, that's really odd. I don't know what that. Or given that we're in like the, you know, the internet age, you know, they come across a website that has like this spell on it, and it's like, oh, it's an internet spell. That's not going to be very effective. Turns out it does exactly what it says. And so now they have to figure out where that spell came from, who posted it, try and get it taken down, and then put out, like, you know, if you're playing something like a Delta Green game or something like that, where you're part of a group that is, like, you know, putting out these fires and dealing with these emergencies. Now you gotta, like, run around and, like, track down all the people who might be trying to use the spell. You've got one one section of your organization looking for, like, strange hailstorms all over the country. But yeah. In any case, that was Sigils in the Dark by Kurt Potts. Thank you so very much, Kurt, for making this game. If you are still in chat, thank you so much. A lot of fun. Hope everyone had fun sort of checking out the game and seeing how it works. One more time, I will put the link in chat. Please do go pick up a copy of it and give it a try yourself. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. I am going to actually, so I'm going to be streaming for 8 hours today, but I don't want an 8-hour long yeah, I love that. It's like, it just makes turtles talk. I don't understand why, like, they're not even mutant turtles. They don't know, like, karate. I don't get it. Like, why would you just want to talk to turtles? Yeah, I don't want like an 8-hour long VOD at the end of today. I sort of want to keep things in like roughly 2-hour chunks. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go to our Be Right Back screen, and then I'm actually going to like end the stream and then restart it and put my starting soon screen up, and take a short break. So if you're in chat and you want to hang around, please do that. If you have to go, I absolutely understand. And I will put out some like going live for my next segment tweets when I'm ready to go. But I need to take a little break, refill my water bottle, pour another cup of coffee, and jump on to the next game. The next game we are playing, by the way, is similar thematically, but not. It's called The Witch's Almanac. Sorry. There we go. That's where you can find it. And it is basically we're racing against time to create a potion on the night of the pink moon. So we're still Magic users. We're much nicer Magic users, and it's a lot of fun. So hopefully you'll come back and watch as I explain and play that game. But for now, I'm going to take a break. So thank you to everyone who came by for the first part of the stream this morning. If you have to go, I absolutely understand. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you're going to stick around for the rest of it, just yeah, stay in chat and things will reset. Otherwise, we will talk to you momentarily. All right. Take care, everyone. See you in a bit.